So the big question is this: how do passionate golfers like you and I develop a stock shot day in and day out? A stock shot that's as reliable as the sun coming up in the morning. That's the question, and this podcast is the answer. Welcome to Stock Shot Secrets. Hey everyone, I am so excited to have my good friend Andy Hiltz on the show today. Andy, how we doing, buddy?
Fantastic. Just getting used to my time zone again since I was on the East Coast and now I'm back in Mountain Time. So
yeah. So Andy, I guess to kind of date how we met back in 2018, 2019, while Andy was working at the Golf Channel for Proponent Group, right? It was kind of a.
Yep.
I guess what would be your official title there at Golf Channel?
I was director of Proponent Group.
Yeah. So when I was doing a bunch of stuff at Golf Channel, and then kind of COVID hit, and you went out and started a consulting company. And I think this podcast, for those that are listening, it's really geared for, if we're going to be super specific, for the golf pros, facility owners, but at the same time, I think for the masses, we can talk about it's probably just a good business. It's a good business discussion for anybody, right? Because the golf business is like any other business, right? It's just, and the stuff we're going to talk about is going to be very universso in concept. So
100%.
And then tell us a little bit, Andy, about your background before Golf Channel, like before we met you, just so that our listeners can understand a little bit more of your story.
Yeah, started teaching golf for full time at Golf Tech in 1999 when I graduated from Mississippi State. Spent 3 years teaching full time on the lesson tee, taught a ton, and then started training coaches at Golf Tech. I had 18 years at Golf Tech before I went and ran Proponent Group and worked for the Golf Channel. PGA Master Professional. I got 15,000 lessons taught. So a lot of teaching to start with, which is kind of my core passion. And then really, when I started training coaches, there were a lot of things on the business side that I noticed that we really significantly lacked. Absolutely. A need for sales training, which I think is probably the biggest lane that I probably stay in, is really trying to train golf coaches to sell a little bit. And that's to me I'll say the part that's become the most fun for me too, and kind of that my years, but probably a lot of other things that happened in the last 25 years, I guess, since I first started teaching golf.
Yeah, so let's kind of camp there for a second. So you're training all of these coaches going through the years, and you're having, a lot of those, whether they're teachers that have been teaching for a while, but probably a lot of them are getting into the teaching. What were some of the strategies for even those listeners that are listening right now, of how do you go from being a mediocre teacher to an exceptional teacher? What were some of the differences that you felt like you built in that training to really advance someone's career quite a bit?
Yeah, good question.
And that's lacking,
Yeah, I guess the skills that they lack, right? And I trained guys that were, I think the youngest coach that we had that came through was 19 or 20. Mm-hmm. So brand new, had never taught a golf lesson in his life, came out of a golf academy, right? Went high school to golf academy, was done in 2 years at the golf academy, and then immediately into our pipeline, to coaches that were, I think the oldest was 80. Yeah. Right? Just was you didn't want to retire as a PGA professional and was ready to do something else, and he wanted to teach a little bit. So the full gamut. And that 80-year-old guy had been in the golf business for 60 plus years. So certainly lots of skills. And I think if you look at the skills of a coach, I would argue that the most important skill to start with as a core is selling. Because if you can't sell, you're not going to teach. Yeah. Right? If you don't sell golf lessons, you got nothing to teach. So and I think the most important thing in learning to be a good coach is experience. Get on the lesson tee and do it. I
remember one of the best advice I ever got from our mutual friend, Lauren Anderson, who founded Proponent Group, was Kyle. And this is back in 2015, 16 when I started coaching. He's like, Kyle, the only way to learn how to teach is to teach. So, and I agree with you. So, and I think that going on that sales piece, right? And it kind of ties in, because I want to get in this, because I think we're at the same heartbeat of this, is that we actually had. It'd be interesting to show you this question, and I'd like to hear your response to this as I pull it up. I answered this inside of our webinar the other day. not to kind of throw you on the spot, but it was interesting because it was very controversial, but I want to hear your thing. He said, after many lessons and many instructors, here is my thought on golf instruction that I'd like to hear. For any given student, why do all instructors think that their method is better than the last instructor and say at the beginning that if you follow them, you will vastly improve? And then when you don't, they say it's part of the process. And I went into this whole idea, which I want to hear your take on, which goes into the sales of, I think that one of the things that happens with instructors in general is when they say, I don't have a philosophy, and I'm like, you're a liar. Like, that's not true, because the second you change someone's grip, you have an opinion. If you didn't have a philosophy or a belief of something, like when they're just like, I don't teach a certain way, it's like, yes, you do. Like, if someone comes in and their grip is super ratchet, you change it. So you do have an opinion. Yeah. But I do think, and I want to tie this into the sales piece, is I think that one of the problems with instruction in general is the fact that most instructors don't actually have a philosophy in which they could write, this is what I believe, and like we have it. You've been to TGR. Have you been to the new TGR? No, you haven't been to the new TGR yet.
I've seen it close to done. Yeah.
But we have it like literally on a banner. Like, you tilt, turn, hinge, shift, drive, pivot, snap, turn, match, and fold. That's the philosophy. Yeah. Now, I could talk about each one of those words for 4 hours, but it's like there is a systematic way of going, and it doesn't mean that like my way. System. Yeah, it's not that my way's the only way. It's just that I know that my way does work, right? And you can't cross-pollinate like mine with, I would say just, even though he's a great guy, but like my way and George Ganks' way are different ways. Yeah. And if you cross-pollinate those two, and then I want to hear your take on this, because I think to the point being is that on the sales side, there's such like a stigma to like, oh, you're just selling. But you're not selling if you actually believe that the core of what you're doing. You're just prescribing what it is. Like, is a doctor selling the chemotherapy to the client, to the patient who has cancer? It's like, no, man, you just, well, yeah, he is. But it's like, this is just right.
And I think that's I heard it this last week at the Proponent Summit. Someone piped up about Andy and it was like, well, what Andy did for me was help me truly be an honest coach. And honesty in the golf instruction world means I'm not saying to somebody, oh, tomorrow you're gonna take 10 shots off from one lesson, because that's that is baloney. It's not going to happen, right? So I am honestly telling somebody who wants to take 10 shots off, and it's usually the 100 shooter that comes in for golf instruction. And but the most common person for lessons is about breaking 100, or is where they're at, and then they want to get down to 90. So if I'm honest with someone, that's a 10 strokes is about a year-long process.
Yeah,
and I tell them that right away, and I'm honest with them, and that's what they want. And I think you talk about a system, if you will. I think I'm Stack and Tilt certified, I'm Impact Zone Golf certified, I'm TPI certified. I've read them all as far as 1 point. And there's a ton of good things from everybody, and I pull from everybody, but I absolutely have a method to my madness, or a system, and I believe strongly in a sequential plan.
100%.
Right? I think that I see in most coaches or most pros is they go pick apart they see the worst thing possible, and they try to fix that one worst thing today. And then when the student comes back next week, there's the next worst thing, and I'm going to fix that. And they just bounce around all over, and there really isn't a sequential plan put in place. And to me, that's part of the sales process as well, is let's sit down with the student and lay it all out and say, look, we've got probably 2 years of work to do, and this is the plan that we're going to go after. Don't think about all this right now. Don't try to fix what's going to happen 6 months from now. Let's just fix this and this today. We'll do that first, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do, so there's a sequential plan or a method to the madness that I kind of, I adhere to in my lesson process, as well as the sales process. So
yeah. And I think that when you're to the point, like when you're that year and a half, I mean, I actually probably say like the we'll call it the mission statement of the golf room is empowering, encouraging, and equipping each player to reach their unique God-given design through the game of golf, right? Sure. So the point being is that if Andy is a 10 handicap, and your God-given design
You haven't
is.
seen my game lately, have you?
I know. I'm just using it for reference. You're a +2 or something, 3, 7. But if you're a 10 handicap, and let's say, and when God created you, you could be a 1, right? It's going to probably take 2.5 years to do that. And that's a very normal thing. I remember asking, one of my good friends is John Rainey, and John Rainey is now the CFO of Walmart. And he left as the CFO of PayPal to go to Walmart. And I was with him in San Antonio, and I was like, hey, John, how long do you think it's going to take you to understand Walmart like you understand PayPal? And he goes, 2.5 years.
Yep.
And I was interested in that, and that would be the way with anybody, right? It's like the first year, you're going to learn 60% of it. The next year, you'll learn 35%. And then the last half year, you learn like the last 5%, which is kind of what Nick Faldo echoed when he worked and rebuilt his swing with David Ledbetter, right? Yeah. That's a pretty, it doesn't mean it takes 2.5 years to get better. It means it takes 2.5 years to really understand your stuff to where you get it, your systems and processes so that you're doing that. So let's take a little bit, now let's kind of take that sales piece because that kind of helps the journey. What about with the instruction? Like, what are some of the, things that you have found with all of your consulting of golf academies that they're losing out on optimizing their revenue for those facilities or for golf instructors in general?
On the teaching side or on the business side?
Business side, and well, I guess you could say business and teaching side. But
I guess I'll kind of merge those two together. It's having a sequential plan, and I've worked with guys, and I'm not, they're wonderful teachers. They're wonderful teachers, but most of them can't sit down and look at a golf swing or a game quickly and lay out that sequential plan of this is what the next 2 years is going to look like. They've never had to do that, and they've taught thousands of lessons in some cases, but they've never sat down and said, hey, the first thing we're going to fix is not your grip. Your grip is jacked up. That's 6th on our list of things to fix. The first thing is going to be your body at addressing, getting you tilted behind the golf ball, getting you, aligned, parallel, whatever, right? And it's just laying out that step-by-step process. And by the way, we're not going to get to your, cast flip chicken until probably 8 months in. So just know that we're not going to see a lot of change in your shot shape until we get about 6 months in, because by the way, you got this nasty hip sway, this reverse pivot, and this elbow, and this lead wrist extent.
That looks like it hurts.
All those different things. They've got it all. I can't fix all that at once. And I think it's that sequential plan, which then allows them to then sell the process and sell annual coaching plans. Like that's one of the biggest things I see in my academies that I work with is, okay, now we've got a process in place. And they'll start selling larger than, they'll go from the 5-pack up to the 10-pack or maybe a 20-pack of lessons, but they can't sell that bigger package because they don't know how to lay that sequential plan out. And they're afraid to sell it too, right? We are so, as golf professionals, like our money concept is so flawed. We've got so much head trash around money when the people that we deal with are millionaires. These people fly private jets. Like, do they care about a $5,000 lesson package if they're flying in private jets? No, they don't care at all. In fact, they'd love to spend it. There's a great stat I saw from the NGF when asked for people who were seeking instruction, what type of lessons were they looking for? And 51% are looking for a long-term solution. 50% are seeking a coach, not just the pro who's giving a one-off tip and one-off lesson. And why are we not selling to that? Why would you not? I mean, that means half the population that's coming to see you is ready for a larger lesson program. Yeah,
we have, from us, John actually just gave me the stat yesterday. You'll like this because it changed a lot since you entered the ecosystem of the golf room as kind of one of my consultants back in, I think we started this probably in 2019, I think is when I start calling you in. We're at 97% of all of the lessons inside the golf room are under membership. So, and we do a la carte. But it's very transparent, and I think it all goes back to the core belief that, and I need to think of a different word than like selling, because it does have this stigma to it. It's almost like sports psychology has a stigma to it, to where if like you're going to work on your golf psychology, it's like you're going to sit around on a couch and talk about your relationship with your father, right? So, but to the point is that I think it comes back to the core of it is a plan. And if you think it's not a plan, we just is like, hey, man, like, I love you. But if you're thinking this is 1 or 2 lessons, like, this probably isn't for you, and this isn't a good match. Like,
I am
you
not
should
the
maybe
coach
go
for you
somewhere
then.
else.
Yep, I am not the coach for you. And I'm happy to say that to somebody. I have
Yeah.
no issue saying, I'm probably not the coach for you. I typically only work with players that are truly committed to their improvement. And when I say commitment, we usually work together for 2 to 5 years. So if
Right.
that's not you, that's okay. Let's go find you a different coach if you're looking for a one-off quick tip, because that's not what I've seen work in my world for as far as game improvement is concerned.
Yeah.
People
So,
respect that. They really do. And I go back to, I think it's just, to me, I used to call my presentation or my initial training of people becoming a coach. Stop being their pro and become their coach. And I really believe a pro is just there for 1 or 2 lessons, where a coach is there for the long term. So I think that's one way to look at it. I love when the person, and I'll leave their name out of it, at the summit this year, Andy allowed me to be an honest coach and
mhm.
truly tell people what they need and have a sales process behind that does not make him feel salesy. It makes him
Yes.
feel like an honest coach. Look, I'm just
Right.
telling you, right? And I use my high school football coach as an example. He didn't sugarcoat things.
Yeah.
If it wasn't a good job, he didn't say good job. He said, "What
Right.
the hell are you doing?"
Right.
Hiltz, come on, man.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of honesty behind his coaching, and I appreciate that. Like that's, to me, that's what a coach does. A coach also boosts his players up and instills them with confidence, but a coach doesn't sugarcoat things when he shouldn't. And I think we do that so much
Yeah.
as
So with that kind of setting out this process, what's kind of not going too far into the weeds, but what's kind of some of your recommendations on that first initial, for the coaches that are listening in, that initial like new student assessment? What's some of like
right there. You just hit it.
what's some of the
An
advice that you say
assessment.
for that roadmap?
Take your hourly rate off your website, take your hourly rate off your menu. You don't do, and you can do hours, but charge a ridiculous amount. My hourly rate is, $7.95 an hour. I don't do that. I do programs, right? So have a
Right.
ridiculous number for your hourly rate, but don't advertise hourly rate. Really, don't advertise hourly rate. Put a new
Yeah.
student assessment up there as your initial start of the process for people. And that
Yeah.
really is, to me, is baseline. I can't tell you at the summit this last week how many coaches in that room. These are the best of the best, right? These are some of the top coaches in America that are part of Proponent Group, and still a huge chunk of them are just offering one lesson at a time. And
Right.
when you say hourly rate, like, and it's all over Golf Digest, like the top teachers list, which congrats, by the way, for being on that
Thank
list
you.
again this year. You're getting close to not being on that young teachers list anymore,
I
buddy.
know.
That's
That's my last go.
but when you look at that, like they publicize hourly rate, and I'm like, stop. Like, what's my annual coaching plan? Publicize that as a price point, right? Don't publicize and don't publicize price too. That's another tangent to get on here. I like to have a conversation with somebody. So when it comes to talking about price and sharing price, that really is one of the first skills. And another reason why you have the assessment, when someone asks, Kyle, what do you charge for your lessons? I say, oh, thanks for asking. My new student assessment is $195, but I'm just curious, what makes you think you need lessons? And I take
Right.
control of the conversation, and you know how the process goes from there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so have an assessment, stop advertising your hourly rate, advertise that assessment as how you get started, and just advertise that price and that
Well, I think
price
it's
only.
Yeah, and I think to the point of some of the pricing model stuff, for us, like we have on our website, like we have the packages and stuff, but not the packages. We have our lesson plans. We don't even do packages, but we have our plans, but we don't advertise the price. And it's not to try to like pull the veil over the customer, but it's more so to say, if I tell you the price, you're not going to understand by the website what's inside the price. So
Yep.
I always the way I onboard like our employees, Andy, I go to kind of to drive the point home. I go, hey, this is my phone. Will you buy my phone for $100,000? And they go, no. I go, well, let me tell you about it. So like inside my phone, I have the contact list of 100,000 people for the email contact. I have $20,000 like dollars worth of PDFs I'm learning. I have the phone contact information for all 50 instructors and their cell phones, like blah 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 blah, and then telling the story. And then I go, would you pay 100? And they're like, I think I'd pay more, right? Because of what the value of what the player is getting, right? So
Absolutely.
and that's something that is creating the right packages, in the sense, packages meaning it all goes back to the roadmap and the journey of what does the player actually need to reach their goal. And then, stuff costs money. It kind of is what it is,
yeah.
right?
I'm not free.
So,
I'm not free.
so that's, I think that it's being, to your point, it's not that you're not being honest with the customer. We're actually probably being the opposite. It's actually, we're being super honest.
Yeah.
But if someone calls in, they're like, hey, can you tell me about like our junior academy? It's like, do you have an hour to talk?
I am happy to share price verbally with people, and I guess there's two key points to make when it comes to talking about sharing price and what do you put on a website. I think number one is don't let them make their major buying decision based solely on the price. So I want to have an explanation. I want to have a conversation and talk about what's included and why I recommend that plan for them when we do start talking about. So I'm not trying to hide price by any means. I just don't want to make them to make their buying decision based solely on price. And then number two, I don't want to create any consumer confusion, because a confused consumer doesn't buy at all. And that's why I have that assessment as a very easy entry point into my ecosystem to get them in, and then we can go deeper after that assessment and figure out what plan is right for them. Hey, if they want to take off 2 shots, I might not recommend a year-long coaching plan.
Yeah.
No, I haven't met many people who just want to take off 2 shots. They usually want to take off 10 and break that next barrier. But yeah, I want to make a recommendation as to what I believe in my heart that they need. Not what's going to make me more money, but what's going to get them to their goals. That's what I want to do. And what I see.
You're going to be teaching either way. So like, this is just what it's, if you need 10 rounds of chemo, that's just what it is.
This is what it is. I had a coach the other day, and we started working together. It's been a month and a half now. He had 40 different options on his website to start. As a consumer, and I'm not an idiot. I'm going to say I'm a pretty good golf consumer because I know what I'm doing. But most people have no idea. And he's Aimpoint certified, and he had Aimpoint clinics. He had a dozen different clinics listed. He did have an assessment on there, which was great, but it wasn't a very clear call to action as to how do I get started. And his challenge was, Andy, I need more students. I'm like, well, you're losing them right now from your website because they don't know how to get started with you. So get all that, have that stuff maybe on your menu. We did a lot of stuff with his menu where we merged a lot of those things into his coaching packages. So his clinics were part of his coaching packages. His supervised practice was part of his coaching plan. His club fitting, part of his coaching. His putter fitting, part of the coaching plan. So we merged all those things together, playing lessons, et cetera, mental golf type, blah, 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 blah. All these became his coaching packages, and it just cleaned things up a lot. And then we made his assessment front and center. That's how you get started.
With our website, I hate our website with a passion, but it's one of those to do things. But with ours, when we redo it, I'm almost to the point where it's like, you go to thegolfroom.com. I might tell you like what we do, but it's almost like it's one page. Just do the NSA. That's it.
That's it.
You don't even need to know about the other stuff because it's all going to be custom built based upon what you need and what you want. So it's like NSA, and then it's like, what do you do, Kyle? And it's like everything. There's literally nothing we don't do. We'll tell you about it after the NSA. Hey guys, I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Stock Shot Secrets podcast. If you are enjoying it, be sure to like this episode. Be sure to subscribe so you can always see when they're coming out. And most importantly, if you would be so kind to be able to share this podcast with other passionate golfers who are trying to get better and build stock shots, because it grows through you sharing it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And now back to Stock Shot Secrets.
Yep. And we'll figure out what plan is right for you. So the NSA is huge.
So what is it? What is it? What do you think? Because I always say, like with my consulting days where people will come in and essentially say, where I open up the box of the golf room, it's like, okay, here's everything we do from operations to sales to NSAs to lead generation. We do all that stuff. And I always, when I'm talking to the PGA pros on the phone and talking to them about coming, there's a much bigger difference between teaching lessons and making $150,000 on a lesson tee and running a company that makes 7 figures a year, right? Like those are different things, right? So what is it, do you think that, what has happened in the industry of golf that has made it to where, just by and large, and really no fault of their own, but the whole business side of the game, right? Like lead generation and marketing and sales and like what you're doing, like what's happening in that industry and why, which has given you and I like a great platform to help steward and coach these coaches. But like, Why is that? Like, what's going on?
How much more time do we have? Can I go all day long on that question? 'Cause that's a long one. I mean, there's been a ton of things that have changed, in my opinion, starting with the technology. I mean, the technology, I think, is allowing consumers to be more comfortable going indoors.
Hmm.
I think that's one of the major overarching changes that's happened in the
Yeah.
last 20 years. Accurate technology. Let me rephrase that. There's been a lot of indoor
Yeah.
stuff, but it
Yep.
hasn't been able to accurately, measure the club, measure the ball, and produce a ball flight that's
Yep.
pretty accurate. So I think that's one of the big ones. I think obviously COVID is certainly. I mean, you rewind 4 years, and it was like, is the world going to end? And all of a sudden, golf just has blown up, which is
Right.
starting to fade. I think there's a lot of people that, I don't know if the bubble has burst, but I think we're at the COVID peak, and I think
Yep.
we're on the hopefully leveling off. Hopefully, we don't decline like we were for so many years
Yep.
in the golf space. So I think that was a huge help as well. The indoor thing is interesting to me too. Obviously the consumers are very comfortable with it now. I think, again, given the technology, part of it, I think, was probably golf tech as well. I mean, golf tech has been around for 25 plus years at this point, and people realize that you can learn golf indoors very effectively.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
my
I
opinion.
think last year they said there was more balls hit indoors than outside,
Yep.
which is a big swing. And I was actually just talking about this yesterday to someone that training indoors, or maybe it was on another podcast, but I was training indoors even like 7 years ago. It was kind of like, yeah, you can do that, but it's still better to go outside. Whereas now I think there's probably a resounding argument where you would go, and I would be on this side where it's like, if you're going to go to practice and get better, it is better to come to the golf room and then go play golf outside.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the other thing that's on an industry standpoint, this is us going on a little bit of a tangent, but that's okay, is I think that golf over the next 50 years is going to morph. And here's my argument why. There was a course that I went out to, Andy, out in Dayton, and it had 36 holes on it. Really pretty course. And I stood at the top of the hill, and as a business guy, I'm like looking over the land, and I'm like, this land is worth probably $300 million bucks, millions of dollars.
Yep.
And I'm like, this guy needs to sell. And the course is amazing, right? Yep. And I remember, and golf courses just, I know, and golf courses just. Golf courses just don't make money. Like, they just don't make any. So I do think that there is something coming, and there's so many people in the industry to where, there was a cool thing. You might have saw this on Instagram a couple weeks ago, where think of the golf room and they're hitting balls because the data is like spot on, and they're hitting balls and they're playing golf, and then they're getting ready to putt, and the screen rolls up. And then they walk through to like the short game, and the laser drops down, shows them where the ball would have been on the green, and then they putt, and then they walk back, which also would satisfy the problem of time, right? I mean,
that's a big.
I have 3 kids. I have 3 kids, and like if I'm like, sweetheart, I'm gonna go play on Saturday, she's like, no. Right? Because it's like a 6-7 hour day.
The whole day. It's the whole day. By the time you drive and all that stuff, I think it's absolutely, to me, the time and money factor is our huge factors when it comes to golf. The time component, though, is a real deal. And like, we had a great conversation. Obviously, the hurricanes through the southeast part of the country have devastating and awful. But what has it done to my tee sheet? If I'm outdoors,
oh yeah,
I teach now the hurricanes come and I'm underwater. So now I got another week like Heathrow, where we were last week. It's underwater in a lot of places still. So.
Really?
Like you can't. Yeah. So indoor environment, like my tee sheet is always going to be good, and I'm going to make the revenue I need all the time. So to me, that time piece, hey, it's 120 degrees outside right now. Do you think I want to go sweat on the range? No. Let me go inside where it's 70 and sunny and air conditioned. So I think that's a huge part of it. The money piece. Again, those golf courses, like we've had it in Denver here. There's been several courses that, and over the last 20 years, that have sold. The land is too valuable. They can't make enough money. Their tax bill every year on that size property is enormous. So they sell its condos now. Like, so it's
and I think I do think that
absolutely be a shift. It's already happening in golf, but it's been cool to see it and cool to be a part of it. And there's more indoor stuff coming. I mean, that's
I don't think that the amount of golfers or golfers in general is going to change. But I do think that the supply of courses is going to drop. And I do think which we are seeing here in Columbus, the price of playing golf simply because is going to go way up because of the fact that there is not enough courses to satisfy the amount of golfers that are there.
Not enough courses. I mean,
and they've
all their agronomy, all the things that, and then
yeah.
compensation. Like I'm hearing compensation really significantly increase in the golf space right now, and it has to. We've been, poorly compensated as assistant pros and head pros for decades, and they've been able to get away with it. And now that isn't happening anymore. So how do you pay for that? Well, the greens fee's got to pay for it, or the membership, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, you've got
like you go look. So I've been to Korea a few times, and the simulators or sim stores they're on every block. They're all over the place, and you see the driving ranges on top of buildings, right? And it's parking underneath, and it's so like their land it's hard to build golf courses, and it's very expensive. So they just do it indoors.
Right.
It's just cheaper. I mean, my rent and my labor are my two biggest expenses. I mean, you obviously know that. Right. Yeah. And if I can control those two and not have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on the property, and I can spend a few $1,000s in a smaller space.
Yeah.
That makes
sense. That was, for me personally, that was something that I think I consulted with you on, that I very much was very aggressive in almost buying 25 acres and like, okay, I'm just going to build a range and so on and so forth. And then I made my calls to Bender and like to the guys up with Core Academy and, Ledbetter, and they're just like, it's actually a terrible idea. Yep. Like, having like a brick and mortar with an indoor facility was a lot safer. So in regards to just kind of moving a little bit into, we've talked about the act of selling and how the opinion shouldn't really be that you're not really selling anything if you actually believe that it is a journey and what the process involves. We've talked about the new student assessment and what that kind of looks like. Right. We've talked about some of the business stuff, but let's fast forward even before getting the NSA. Is there any quick wins that you could think of for the PGA Pro or the indoor facility of like creating leads, right? Like how do you encourage the pro to actually go about getting some clients into the room?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a
marketing. I love marketing to death.
That's probably your more forte than mine. I don't mind it. It certainly isn't my expertise. I'm a big referral guy, so I want to try to maximize the number of referrals that I can get. Like that to me is enormous. I think the things that I've heard be pretty successful. Obviously, social's a no-brainer. Google AdWords seems to be pretty popular. Social media ads also seems to be pretty popular. Those are some of the things I think that you can start to build a bit of a clientele. I'm a fan right now. This is the slow time of the year for most academies. You get in this kind of shoulder season where golf season's over once Labor Day kicks in and football starts and school starts. I'm a fan of a discount. I don't mind a $99 assessment right now to kind of move the needle and get more people coming into the door at this time of year in the shoulder season. So those are some things that I would do. The holidays are coming around. Gift cards are huge. So start advertising gift cards. Like December can be a huge month and kind of a bad time of year for the Northern academies to go drive some revenue to take you through that January, February timeframe before things really kick in again.
Yeah, so I think to add some 2 cents to it, there's a marketing sale, I guess I'll do two things to tie it in. When you're selling something or you're trying to give something away, there's a few things. The first piece is that you need to earn the trust of the people. Mm-hmm. They have no reason to trust you, so we have to extend the hand of friendship as a company way more than the customer needs. Then they need to feel like we have given everything and then say, hey, have we earned your trust to give it back, right? And when you're doing that stuff to sell it out and to earn that trust, there's a marketing statement that I love, which is always like, give them what they want and then sell them what they want and then give them what they need. So what I mean by that is, at the golf room, it's like you want a TrackMan practice. Yeah. So then they want to come in and practice, but it's like, but what you really need is you need an NSA. So like, let's give you a TrackMan practice and you can pay for that, but we'll give you an NSA on top of that, right? Or, hey, you want to learn how to cure your slice, so I'm going to give you that for free, but then I'm going to teach you what you need is you need to know how to cure your slice. So then That's what you're going to need. So you're going to sell. And then there's also the point too, as a third point for the pro, is there's a famous marketing statement that I love by this guy named Dan Kennedy, which is, who can ever spend the most money to acquire a customer can win. So when you have these programs that are built around membership, right, and built around a journey, you can spend a lot of money to acquire the customer because you know what the lifetime value of the customer is. So, for example, like our junior academy is very expensive, right? Very expensive on purpose. It's expensive by dollars, but it's cheap relative to what they're getting, because they're getting so much. I mean, not to be braggadocious, but I think our academy is better than IMG's. It's the best academy maybe in the world, definitely America. I'd put it up against anybody. But I mean, I can go to someone and be like, hey, if you send me an academy lead, I'll give you $4,000. It's like, okay, you know what I mean? Because
cost of acquisition is worth it.
Yeah, the cost of acquisition is worth it. If you understand that you're going to be selling that into a program that's going to be lasting for a while. So
that's where I hammer the NSA. Like, that to me is, get them in for an NSA, get them in for an experience. And to your point about building that trust with people, that's why I like a 90-minute NSA to start with. It gives me a lot more time. And as part of that sales process, I know we've talked extensively and trained the guys extensively about, from booking conversation, that initial booking, to the questionnaire that goes out, to then a discovery call that happens before they come in, to then finally having that experience of an NSA. Like, there's 4 touch points there. And that's what the design intentionally, so you can build that trust. And when you do go ask for a significant sum of money, like, they trust you and they love you and they're ready to buy. And that to me is very different than the normal, hey, grab your 7-iron, let's take some swings. Like, that's how most lessons begin, for an hour, right? And it doesn't, to me, we're whiffing on so many steps in that process before we even get somebody on the tee to start with. So
yeah, and I think it all comes back down to the heart of the coach, to where if I'm talking to a player and about that NSA process, I never feel like I'm selling. I feel like I'm just a doctor that's like, hey man, like, you have this disease called shallow, steep, shallow, and to fix it, we need to take 10 weeks of this medicine, and then we got to take another 5 weeks of this one, and like, at the end of the thing, like, it's going to be gone, right? And this is kind of what it is. And it's not my place to say whether what you can afford and what you can't. It's just like, this is the truth, and you cannot fix a game in a lesson. It's a journey. So
it's absolutely a journey. And if they can't afford it, to me, that's the fun conversation to have on the back end, right? I can appreciate that. I get it. Just 100%. Understand, let's know where's your budget, and let's go find a budget that works for you.
Yeah.
And then here's what we can accomplish given that time frame. Like, that's one of the ones I see a lot of academies that don't do that. So I was trying to sell an annual coaching plan. I sold 3 months. Okay, great, thank you. But if you're selling the 3 months versus the annual, like, here's what I think we can accomplish in 3 months. So it's not just hey, we didn't get to my goal. Well, yeah, I recommended a year to get it to that goal, and we didn't get there because we only had 3 months time. So you have to make sure you're, again, being that honest coach and making them understand what you can accomplish in said time frame.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Andy, thank you so much. I really appreciate us hanging out and getting your wisdom.
Again, we can go all day long on this stuff.
We could. If someone wants to, if someone would like to just learn more about kind of some of the things that you do and some of your services, and just a little bit, interact with you a little bit, how can they best get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can pop on my website, hiltzgolf.com. Very, very original name, obviously, with my creative genius there. Yeah, pop on the website. You can submit on the website. I do an assessment, kind of, very similar process. I've got, monthly programs that range anywhere from $400 to $1,600 a month, depending on, what you want to do, what your timeline is, and how fast you want to accelerate the improvement. But yeah, that's how you can see some of the success stories on there as well. There's been some great success stories of 300% increases in total revenue and lessons taught, and, game-changing stuff when you learn some business strategies to go along with high-quality coaching. That's the thing I see most coaches lack. They'll spend thousands on a TrackMan, thousands on certifications for swing stuff, but they won't go spend to help their business, which is the key to truly changing the game.
100%.
From making $80,000 a year to $300,000 a year as a single coach. So
I'm happy to give you $10,000 if you can make me an extra $100,000. It's the easiest money one would ever spend.
Absolutely, and that's the goal. I love. We talked at the proponent group some about what's your why. I love helping golf coaches, man. That's my passion. I would do it for free if I didn't have a mortgage to pay and mouths to feed. But at the end of the day, I still have a mortgage to pay and mouths to feed. So yeah, I love it. It's a ton of fun, and to be game changing for their business, not just for a year, but if you're 40 right now and you're going to coach the next 30 years of your life, like, let's go game change your life for the next 30 years. And we're talking, millions and millions of dollars, again, without being a salesman, right?
Yeah.
Just being their coach. And that to me is the most fun thing about learning the strategies and the sales tactics, is you can just be their coach. And that's fun.
Yeah, cool. All right, buddy. Well, you take care. Have a great day. And thank you so much for joining me.
Take care, man. Talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in to the latest episode of Stock Shot Secrets. I want to invite you, the business owner who would like to learn how to scale your revenue to make more money inside your business. I want to invite you to Columbus. Spend a few days with me where I show you everything that we do at the golf room to build our business to go from like 1 bay to 2 bays, and then 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, 4 to 6 and 6 to 12, and now the largest player development facility in America. I'm going to show you everything we have, basically give you the franchise code, if you will, on how we go about our business. So I want to invite you to learn more about it. Just go to thegolfroom.com/business-coaching, and you can learn all about this process and see if it's a good fit for you. And hopefully I see you soon in Columbus, Ohio.